What's going on today, guys? So obviously we are not in the garage tonight. Honestly, I just don't feel like being in there. It's cold outside. I just kind of want to be inside tonight. But I'm going to be discussing a topic that I get asked quite frequently on Instagram, Facebook, and even in the comments. So I figured I'd make this and maybe it will help some of you guys if either you're just starting to plan a build or if you're kind of mid-build and just need a little bit of direction. Maybe these helpful tips and points will help you out in the direction where you're going. So the question I get asked all the time is, can you recommend something for my setup? Or what is the best setup? Or what can I do to make X? Or what can I do to do this? So as far as setups go, and when people ask me questions, I really do try and get back to every single one and try and give you my opinion on what I can do to maybe help in your specific situation. But the way I answer almost every single one of those questions is almost the same, because the answer is there is no best setup. There is no such thing as a blanket of this is what you should do, this is the order that you should do it. Yes, there are some mods that, for the beginners and just starting out, here's the building blocks, here's the foundation, start there and then go from there. So if you're just starting out, let me talk about that quick. So first couple mods you can start out with is a intake, an exhaust, and some type of tuning. Now, if you have a 12 valve, all you need is a screwdriver. But for everybody else, common rails especially, usually I always recommend EFI Live. EFI Live is a custom tuning option that you get mailed from a tuner that writes tunes for your specific truck. And if you are a little more moderate to heavily modified, he suits the tuning towards what you have done to your truck. So those three things: intake, tuner, and exhaust. If you are past that point, next thing you should probably be looking at is a lift pump. A lift pump, obviously for many different reasons, is another foundation building block that will help support more power and ultimately actually better for even a stock truck filtering for your fuel system. All right, so those modifications that I just listed right there, if you are looking to go further into the performance of your truck and want to get more power, better fuel economy, whatever you might want to do with your truck, and you are looking to spend some more money on it and you don't know where to go next, before you start spending money on anything, and I know it's hard, a lot of people are on the forums, they see a used turbo, a used set of injectors, and they're like, oh, that's in my price range, let me go pick that up. What you should be doing before you even do that, and the first question that I ask anybody before I even give any advice, is what are your goals for the truck? That is something you should know before you buy any more parts for your truck. I feel like that is something extremely important because if you don't have goals, just like anything else in life, you can easily get off track and end up getting things for your truck that maybe you're going to regret a little bit later down the road, or you get a turbo too big or too small, or injectors too big or too small. Really, you need to set some goals. And what I mean by that is you should have a power number that you want to reach, because that's what a lot of people are into nowadays. I want to hit 800, I want to hit 900. You need to put a ceiling on the power that you want to make. Now, when you have a power number, you should also know how you want the truck to react and how you want the truck to drive. What I mean by that is, do you still tow with the truck? Do you still daily drive the truck? Do you expect the truck to have zero smoke? Do you expect the thing to drive like a Prius? Everybody's driving style is a little different. So what is acceptable to one person might not be acceptable to the next person. The other major thing that plays into factor is your budget. I get the question all the time: single turbo, twin turbo, triple turbo. There's so many different ways to skin a cat. If you want to get to 800 or 900 horsepower, that's fine. You can do that so many different ways, and it all plays back into, what's your budget and how do you expect the truck to act. If you expect something that is completely smoke-free, that spools instantaneously, that's gonna change a recommendation of what people are going to recommend for you. A couple other things that are going to play into a factor of people's recommendations for your trucks is altitude, which makes a big difference in spooling turbochargers. If you are closer to sea level, you're going to have an easier time than people at a much higher altitude. The truck platform that you're working with, if you're in a second-gen truck versus a third-gen truck, you might have a little bit different of a route to get to those higher power number levels than, say, a common rail truck of any kind. And also some supporting mods that you might already have done to your truck, which obviously is going to play into that as well. All right, guys, so another point that I want to bring up is the bigger is always the best theme that seems to be going around a little bit. And what I mean by that, I feel like people are oversizing their fuel and air setups for the power and the goal for their truck. If you are trying to hit 6 or 750 horsepower, there's no reason you should be looking at a 75 millimeter turbo and 250% over injectors. I feel like when you piece together parts that work together for your goal, you just don't need some of these huge monster turbos and injectors that people are putting on their truck, and they're complaining, oh, it smokes too much, oh, it's laggy, and all I really wanted to do was hit this number. It's just completely unnecessary and unneeded. All right, so I just want to touch on fuel and air setups just for a brief moment here and discuss maybe some weak points and some pros and cons of some of the turbo setups when it comes to single and twins and triples, things like that. So single chargers are great. It's what a lot of people start with. They can support a lot of power at certain levels, but what they give up, I guess, would be, and the biggest con is when you start wanting to say 900 plus horsepower, but you're trying to do that with a single charger. It's very doable, don't get me wrong, but what you are starting to gear your truck towards is that power number. As far as towing with it, as far as daily driving with it, and as far as the smoke output, which can all be controlled. It's just good, better, best. If you had to do a graph chart of, take your categories of, power, towing, drivability, and put a single charger here. It's gonna, make your power level, but it's gonna be a little lower on all those other charts. Now, when you move into, say, twins or compounds, obviously it can, you substantially raise the bar of what kind of power you can make with those, depending on, and this is all dependent on sizing as well, guys. But what you gain with going with something like that is, you gain your drivability, you gain more drivability, you gain, towing back. If you size twins appropriately, you can pretty much do anything and everything that you really want to do. Now, when you get into, say, triples, those are more geared towards, one, competition use for sure, but you can drive them on the street still. Now, what triples can really help with is if you're in a twin application and you start getting up bigger in sizing, to the point where you're starting to kind of lose your, say, drivability, towing, all that stuff. If you're starting to, raise higher in the power level, triples can actually split that workload up, and you can get a smaller sized turbos, and they can work together to go even higher in power and then still be able to have, better street manners than that, say, that really large twin setup. So it's kind of a progression, and it's all sizing, guys. I'm trying to think of the best way I can really describe this, and now on camera it's kind of hard to explain, but each setup has its pros and cons, and they can pretty much all do what you're looking for them to do up to a certain horsepower extent. It's just everything else after that horsepower number of what is acceptable to you and how your truck is going to drive and things like that. And my take on fuel system parts to go along with your turbo setup is this. Now, I always use Exergy injectors and Exergy fuel pumps for the most part, and pretty much everywhere I can. They rate their injectors with a percentage. Now, when you're looking at injectors, they really need to match your air setup, but the one key point that I want to hint on is take 100% or 150% over injector. An 150% over injector in certain applications can support almost 1,000 horsepower. 100% over injector can support, an easy 800, you know, a little more, maybe even 900, depending on the case. Every case is different. I'm not saying these are set in stone numbers. And then again, these are just my opinions and what I've seen. So if you're looking to make a 800 horsepower truck, or say a 900 horsepower truck, why are you looking at 350% over injectors? It's not needed, you know, and everybody's, oh, well, they can just be turned down, you know, with the tuner. That's true to some extent, but, you know, the nozzles are still big. You can only cut stuff back. My damn phone's going off. You can only cut things back so much. So why oversize things to the point where it's just going to make life for your tuner a little harder trying to do that? You know, size everything appropriate for your goals. Anyway, I'm rambling again. I feel like I've just been rambling. As far as CP3s go, I get a lot of questions about dual CP3s and this and that. My whole take on CP3 pumps, now that they have 10 millimeters, 12 millimeters, and now they actually have 14 millimeter single pumps. If you are in the position where you're trying to do 8, 9, 1,000 horsepower, there's single CP3 applications that can take care of that without getting dual CP3s. Now, why do I say that? Dual CP3s are great. I have them on my truck. Where I think dual CP3s lack is all of the extra parts and moving components that are integrated with a dual CP3. You have another pump that you now have to worry about, wear items down the road. You have a whole separate feed line to your rail. Most times you have a controller that you have to worry about. You have another set of pulleys that are now worried about, and you have a longer belt to integrate that. So you pretty much are adding all these extra parts. Now, yes, a lot of people do. They just keep their stock pump and keep another stock pump on there. But what I would recommend, if you can do, like on Andrew's Mega Cab, is he has one 12 millimeter pump. That one 12 millimeter pump will support a whole lot of power, and it's right in the factory location. He doesn't have to worry about splicing in an extra fuel supply line or any of those extra parts that you would with a dual CP3 kit. It's just simpler and easier in my opinion, and will still support the goal. All right, guys, that is gonna do it. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. Hopefully I helped a couple of you guys out. Again, my thoughts and my opinions. Take it for what it's worth. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.